You mentioned we kind of touched on ethics, right? And you were mentioning ethics in the US. And is that different in Korea
Oh
where
yeah,
like
totally.
so talk
Yeah,
can you talk about that a little bit?
yeah.
What are some of
So
the differences?
so the big difference I think in the States, why street photography, we have certain, bodies, huge bodies of work. Street photography is a thing because privacy is not linked to space. Privacy is linked to space, sorry. Privacy is linked to the space that you're in. Um, so if you're in a public space, everything in that space is fair game. Um, Whereas in Korea, privacy is an individual right
Oh,
guaranteed in the Constitution. So you cannot violate people's right to privacy.
interesting.
So technically, taking a person's picture has always been not illegal, but kind of in a gray area because the idea of in Korean law, there's this idea of the right to control your facial image,
Hmm.
which is very old school in a way, Confucian, um, you could say, in that your face. You've heard the expression losing losing face.
Hmm.
Um, like that's your image in society. That's who you are. That's your image is something you need to be able to control. And photographically, the right to control your facial image, your chosang, which is your facial image, um, kwon, which is the right to control it, um, should not be violated. But practically speaking, until really recently, it wasn't a criminal. It's not part of criminal law. It's just uh, uh, a concept that allows you to be sued in civil law. So if you take a picture of someone without their permission, that in itself wasn't necessarily a problem. But then if you publish it
Hmm.
and it results in harm to them, you are liable for the harm that you've caused. Sort of like libel law.
Right.
Libel is also
Mhm.
um, very, big thing in Korean society. Libeling someone, slandering someone, that is also potentially a criminal offense. And you can definitely sue someone quite easily for that sort of thing. Because spreading rumors has always been kind of a problem in Korean society. So there's a legal instrument to deal with that. And the face is something that, is part of your right to privacy. So um, it wasn't really something that kept people, that was prosecuted against people, but it was a concept in society such that people just thought actually this misconception was there for a long time, since I think the 80s, that it was illegal to take people's picture without permission. Not actually true, but that's what everybody thinks. Um, so culturally speaking, people are really, 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 really careful about taking pictures. Even if you're in like you take a picture of your friend at the shopping mall or something like that, and there's a whole bunch of people randomly in the background. In Korean social media, you'll see people putting like little happy faces or cute little
Oh.
stickers over people's faces
Oh,
so
wow.
that they don't get in trouble.
Oh.
Hmm. That's
But in
pretty
other
interesting.
places where it's much more illegal, like Germany, France, these days, from what I hear, what I understand, is in Germany, if you take a person's picture, even accidentally, it's like you punch someone in the face. It's seriously illegal. So people just don't do it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty
So
hardcore. Jeez.
yeah, Korea is kind of in the middle, I guess, of that. It's not really illegal, although there's recent laws against sexual crimes that have made it a lot, the laws that exist have a lot more teeth. So it's kind of a bad idea to take people's pictures without permission in general in Korea these days. Um, but yeah, so there's kind of a culture of not doing it more than there is a strict legal code, and someone's going to call the police on you, you're going to end up in jail that night. Um, but generally, you just kind of don't do it, which is weird since street fashion has picked up as this really specific, like thriving photographic practice here, especially around Fashion Week, Seoul Fashion Week, where I shoot a lot of stuff these days. But yeah, Korean photographic practice, modeling, things like that, has really exploded largely because of Instagram. Um, so in a way, the kind of vibrant photographic posing modeling culture shouldn't exist in Korea, given all of the kind of structural, things that should give a little bit of friction against that. But it's actually quite lively here.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So when you ask, you said you'll ask for somebody's permission. Do you feel like just getting that verbal permission is enough, or do you worry that,
Mm,
like
yeah.
that's fine?
Oh,
And I think that's one of the reasons it's actually kind of easier to do that kind of thing here, um, because there is kind of this sense, well, there are legal instruments that can be used if you don't have people's permission. Because it exists, I think what I used to do when I used to actually do real street fashion photos, I used to go out into the streets more and just grab people. But then I started going to Seoul Fashion Week, and then all the people who want to be in the pictures are coming to me. And frankly, I got lazy because you got much better people, much better models, much better clothing, and they're all coming to you. So, and Seoul Fashion Week pictures draw in more attention than just me going to Myeongdong. But yeah, in a way, it's kind of easier to just be like, hey, and now people know what street fashion photo is. Um, hey, you look really cool. I'd like to take a picture, street fashion photo of you and put it on my Instagram. Now people are like, okay, I understand what you're asking. And they're flattered. So, and now you can just roll up your Instagram feed and show them what kind of pictures you're taking. And then they ask, oh, is this free? Like I mean, that's kind of flattering. They
yeah.
assume that you may be trying to sell them something because the pictures are good. So I'm like, yeah, this is not me trying to get money off you. I just think you look great. I'd like to take your picture. And we do that. And then what I do is I pose them with the whiteboard, little mini whiteboard I carry. Um, make them put their name, phone number. Nowadays, Instagram used to be email, but young people don't use all that stuff. Name, phone number, Instagram. That's pretty easy. And I pose that next to their face so I know who they are. Um, because in 3 weeks, you're not going to remember from your notebook
Yeah.
the girl in the green dress who was
Yeah.
standing, like, who the heck are you talking about?
Oh,
3 years later, you have no idea who that is. And I think that's enough, practically speaking. They've made the symbolic,
yeah.
choice to give you permission. If they tried to sue me in civil court and say, oh, this person ruined my life, took my picture without permission, even though they were looking directly into the lens, the judge is going to be like, so you then wrote down all of your personal information and posed with your face in it.
Yeah, that's smart.
I don't think this
Yeah.
has any merit. So it's not a contractual obligation. They didn't sign away their rights. It's not a model release or anything like that.
Right.
But I think in Korean society, practically speaking, it's just as good, because according to Korean law and legal expectations, I think I'm cleared, and I've never had any problem. But yeah, the problem though, it gets sticky because actually, right to control your facial image is actually not linked to consent. That's the weird thing.
What?
It's linked to whether you cause damage with your picture.
Oh.
So there have been photographers who've been sued, successfully sued, and one specifically destroyed, even after full legal releases were signed and everything.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's not a guarantee. You just have to have common sense and kind of know the lay of the land. So this person, there was a starlet who this person posed nude and did all kinds of cool, sexy shots, whatever. Um, was paid, signed the release forms. That person now owns the picture and can use them whatever way they want. But that starlet then got big, became huge, and now this guy's like, wow, I have nudie pics of the most famous person in Korea,
Oh, wow.
and tried to move with
Hmm.
them, and just got sued to the point of ruination. But yeah, that's the thing. even if you've signed away rights, you've sold the picture. A lot of times when you do releases in the States, the old traditional thing was to give the person $1 so that legally you've been paid for the picture,
Right.
which kind of decides the thing. But in Korea, that's meaningless because even if you got paid, you signed the releases, sign your soul to the devil. If those pictures result in harm later, you're fully liable, and consent isn't a part of it. So that's one thing I worry about in my pictures. So I took lots of pictures of couples looking cute on their date. There's one cute picture in Shincheon, which is kind of like this, young person's hangout a long time ago. This couple, very cute, took their picture. They found out the story. This was their last date before he went to military service. So for a lot of couples, that's really your last date. I mean, you're going to probably break up. High likelihood you're going to break up once they go to military service. That's a thing. But they were like on their last date. We're going to be together, and she's going to wait for me, and cool, good for them. But it was a really cute picture, and she actually wrote me an email later and was like, "Thank you for this picture. This like saved this wonderful moment in our lives." I was like, "Oh, this is why I do what I do." And this is in 2006, 7. I'm gonna say 7. So is that person, are these people married to each other? Probably not. Statistically, probably not. They probably didn't even make it to the end of his military service in terms of probability. Are they married to people? Probably. So if I did a retrospective book, big exhibition in Seoul of street photography, people through the ages, well, not ages, but through the last 2 decades. If I did something like that, and that person found, because none of the contact information that I had on this person is valid anymore. Most of the services that they use, World, whatever, they don't even exist anymore. So it's sort of like if I had their contact plate and they were like, "Oh, MySpace, hit me up at MySpace."
MySpace.
They're gone, effectively. So if I published it and the person found out that that cute picture from 2007 is up there, and their husband found out, and the husband's like, "I thought you said you never dated anyone before you met me," and then they get divorced, I'm liable.
Oh man.
So yeah.
Wow.
So you just have to be, I mean, according to the Korean way, you just kind of have to, know the room, read the room. So I probably wouldn't make a book of couples I shot in the early 2000s because that's just a good way to end up getting sued.
Yeah.
And also, by way of reading the room, when I do street photo, like a cute street photo shot, I've got one of a woman who was, before smartphones and things, who was waiting for her friend. People used to wait in a spot like exit 9 of this subway station, and just I'll meet you at 3 o'clock, but they're not coming. You don't know where they are, and she's been waiting there for like an hour, because I passed in front of this record store and I saw that person there. Once you're doing street photography, kind of observant. Anyway, I saw that she was there like half an hour later when I came back around, and I was like, and she looked pretty irritated. So I was like, I think this person's been waiting here for a while. So what I did is I kind of hung out, had my wide angle lens kind of just here, and zoomed out, focused. And this is when it was manual focus. And I just did a really slow shutter speed because there were people going back and forth. And I had all these blurry people, and she's sitting there like, so she's really still, and all these people are blurred. Her face is clearly shown. She's, one could surmise that she's standing there being impatient or, irritated that her friend is not coming. But I would use that in a retrospective, and possibly that person might get irritated that their picture was taken and they never knew it. But in terms of reading the room, is that picture going to cause this person damage in their life? They were standing in front of a thing, waiting for somebody. It's probably not going to cause them any damage. So even that picture, I don't have any permissions or anything like that. I would roll the dice on that picture and use that picture because it doesn't cause damage. Nobody's husband or kid or employer or whatever is gonna, do something to them in response to that picture. I think that is kind of how you have to put together, book, how you decide to print something, how you navigate kind of Korean law and actual social rules that way. So yeah, I don't know if I answered the question or if I veered off
Oh
too
no,
much.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that and it makes a lot of sense. It's interesting, all the nuance and the way that you have to think about that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's super different than here. I mean, you just take pictures all day long.
And that's the advantage, I think. That's why you can have a paparazzi. If you think about it, for as popular as K-pop idols are, and people watch their every move, everything they tweet or put out on social media is gone over with a fine-tooth comb. Did they say China versus Taiwan? Did they use this word? Did they say Chinese New Year? Blah blah blah. Versus Lunar New Year. You can imagine that there would be a market for paparazzi to find out what they're doing in their private lives, but there are no paparazzi in K-pop. You can't use those pictures because it's very, if you got, you got a member of BTS walking hand in hand with some random girl or guy. That's my secret theory. Anyway, I'll leave that. With someone into a love motel, then that in the American market, if they're super famous, that's serious cash. That's a payday right there. In Korea, that's the way to end your financial life forever.
Wow.
So people don't do it.
oh, what a difference.
Yeah, I kind of
Yeah.
like that.
Because it's not space related. And the thing is, if someone's walking to the Motel 6, I guess the American equivalent, was pulling up in Motel 6, getting out of their car, and not Johnny Depp. So I'm trying to think of update like Keanu Reeves. I don't know, somebody very popular
Updated
was
Keanu Reeves.
sneaking into one of the like little roadside door facing motels, on the first floor, and they were going into the motel together. That's like, I just made so much money because that picture's thousands of dollars a publication, maybe tens of thousands. But yeah, you can do that in the States because it's a public space.
Mhm.
And your privacy is not constitutionally protected right. So I'm forgetting the name. He had an Italian surname. There's a famous case of a guy who was photographing Jackie O, I think it was, and he used like a 500 millimeter lens to zoom in on the them doing private things in their house. His argument was, I was in a public space. I was on the sidewalk using a telephoto lens, so I'm good, right? And the court was like, you're not good because that is not a reasonable instrument, and you were looking in a private space in an unreasonably invasive way. So you can't do that. Although it's nowadays you got people taking pictures of people sunbathing from helicopters, and things have changed. But basically, it's related to the space you're in, the space the people are in. And I think the difference with that photographer was like, I was physically in a public space, so
he didn't
it's still
understand.
about the space. Whereas in Korea, it's about, I have the constitutionally protected right to be left alone.
Sounds
So
so much better.
Yeah.
in a way, I think related to these concepts, there's this. Have you heard of the burning sun incident, or maybe even seen? There's a Netflix documentary about cyber, not stalking, but cyber sexual assault. That's been a lot of stuff happening with photography in Korea. Secret cameras installed, and secret cameras is a huge thing here.
Really?
Yeah.
Secret
So that's a
cameras.
huge issue. to the point where there are stickers in a lot of women's restrooms saying this restroom has been checked and cleared.
Oh.
Yeah, and people
God.
I understand that a lot of women before they go to the restroom, they kind of check out, oh, that hole looks a little weird. People are suspicious and nervous. It's that bad.
Hmm.
Yeah, so
Wow.
there was a case, famous, there was a nightclub called the Burning Sun, I believe it was. And related to that, there are a lot of secret camera stuff happened, people being coerced into doing sexual things on camera. Um, and then once you do it the first time, you've got the dirt on them. Then you've got the coercive ability to keep making them do things. So you had people being like sexually assaulted on camera, people sharing the videos and things like that. So it was pretty big scandal, kind of tore through K-pop because I think I don't remember the details, but K-pop people were involved. And so people who are in chat rooms, Kakao is the big service people use for chat. People who were in Kakao chat rooms who were in which the sexual videos were being shared were prosecuted under newer, updated versions of these laws. But it was mostly related to privacy.
Hmm.
Not so much. So the interesting thing was those people prosecuted, they weren't so much prosecuted because they sexually assaulted someone or they were participating in a sexual assault. For the most part, legally, it had to do with the fact they're violating this person's fundamental right to privacy. Although there are some new specific laws that deal with using
You picked a
photographic
really
devices.
hard career then. You photography and ethnography
Yeah.
is pretty much just big huge. It's just getting in there and taking photos of things. Like you're
Yeah. I mean, that's
talking
the
about
thing.
privacy.
It like, especially since I look at Instagram subcultures, I got interested Instagram modeling subcultures after I got kind of tired of doing the street fashion. I kind of wrote myself out. It wasn't that interesting. It wasn't new anymore. But all these photographic subcultures related to Instagram are enabled by Instagram, stuff like that. What it occurs to me, they actually shouldn't exist in Korea because Korea has such a fraught relationship to photography, to images, the face going out there. There are infamous cases, for example, I'm going to digress a bit. The first major case of cyberbullying with a camera was in South Korea, actually, in 2005. There was someone called the dog poop girl. I don't know if you heard about this.
No, please tell this
The
story.
dog poop girl
So
sounds
dog poop
awful.
girl, I share a nickname, sort of like Star Wars Kid.
I knew Star Wars Kid.
Right, that became her nickname.
Oh my God.
And
Much worse nickname.
yeah, thankfully no one knows her name, or no one nowadays knows her name. So she was a young woman who had this like designer dog, little doggy in a bag on the subway, and the dog got down on the subway car floor and did a diarrhea runny poop on the floor. And people were like, clean that up. And she was like, no, I'm not cleaning up shit,
Oh God.
literally. And yeah, so she's not a nice person. She's not a good person. And then you had little old ladies, grandmas, like gave her tissue, put them out of their bag because grandmas have tissues in their bags. And she then proceeded to use the tissue to wipe the dog's butt. And people were like, no. But the difference is 2005, Koreans, largely with Samsung phones, Samsung already stuck phones onto cameras. So it wasn't, I mean, you could do that in 2005, I think, in the States or other markets, but you had to be into the idea of having a special camera with a special phone with a camera on it. But everybody had phones back then on their cameras. So people were just like, oh, you don't want to do it? Click, 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 click. And so they put her picture of her wiping the dog's butt, of her sitting stubbornly, not cleaning this stuff up in the runny poo in the bottom of the frame. Perfectly framed, well framed pictures, but they put up onto all social media. And there was social media, Korean domestic social media back then. And basically, people were like, oh, what a horrible person. And yeah, I wouldn't want to have a beer with her. I wouldn't want to be her friend. But they figured out, of course, the mass mind figured out her school, They figured out her student number, student ID, home address, her full name, obviously, her citizen's ID, which is like your social security number, every aspect of her life.
Oh,
They put it up and people were like, destroy her. And people were going at her. So she finally came onto some kind of social media, I understand, and was like, listen, I'm sorry, you win. I'm a horrible person, but I don't want to kill myself. So please stop. So finally, I didn't think after a certain point, the narratives changed. People were like, oh, I think there was a news story, I forget which paper, that was like, oh, maybe we shouldn't keep doing this. Maybe this is a problem. But then again, it's an early part of the technology. So it sort of reminds me of Monica Lewinsky, because there was a time when every punchline that she was getting hit with was hilarious and fuck her, right? And we were all just like, ha 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 ha, this is hilarious. And then much, much later, we were like, oh my God, we're horrible people. Like, she didn't deserve that. Yeah, she didn't make the best choice, but she didn't deserve all that. So, but yeah, Korea has that relationship with cameras earlier than other places. So it's extra weird, but really interesting, sociologically speaking, that Korea has such a vibrant photographic, display, social media, highly professionalized photographic culture, because it shouldn't really. And yeah, there's so I look at that and I kind of use my camera as a way to gather data. As the pictures that I take are a way to gather data. I'm actually figuring out what's happening, the relationships required, the labor required to make a picture, but also I have to make relationships with the person to negotiate to have this picture. Yeah, so it's like a key to access to these communities. If you take good pictures, most of the vibrant subcultures on social media are on Instagram, and they want the currency is good pictures. So whether it's like the drag community, the LGBTQ drag communities that are pretty vibrant now, drag performers. If I'm like, hey, I'll take a magazine style picture of you, are you down for that? They're like, yeah, name the date and time. So I have access to people I'd never be able to, call traditionally and be like, hi, I'd like to interview you in a coffee shop and take 2 hours of your time. So please meet me because I'm a fancy professor somewhere. Like, I don't have to do that. I can give them a reason to deal with me. So it's a key of access as well as a actual data itself. So as an academic, it helps me do the kind of work I couldn't probably do without the camera.